mine was off.
All right. Well, hello, anyone joining us this lovely morning. And welcome to EMS Office Hours. Of course, I am, as always, Jim Hoffman.
And I'm Dave Brenner.
And Josh is just popping in. Last minute, Johnny.
And I'm Josh Knapp.
Ah!
There he is.
Hey, guys.
Last minute, Josh. Never to disappoint. You know?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I know what it's going to say on your tombstone. Here lies
you know
late
what?
Josh Knapp.
You know, if I'm late to that, I'm okay with that.
No. Here lies the late Josh Knapp.
Yeah.
One thing he was on time.
I'm okay with that.
So I wanted to, I know that I've been trying to phase out the EMS Office Hours podcast. So in some ways,
But you couldn't.
This isn't necessarily a continuation of the podcast. It's more of a jump in and let's talk about some EMS stuff without being pressured to have a scheduled show every week.
We're getting the band back together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no Ringo. He's not here. Just the three of us. But I don't know. I saw, you know, it's like you go on social media, you see lots of things that you feel you want to have a little bit of a discussion on and talk about it and kind of vent and get your thoughts out and see what other people think, which is always a great thing. You know?
So you're basically saying, Jim, what this show has always been about. You want to continue just being about it.
Yeah, it's a bitch session.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We can do that. We have the expertise and the experience.
Yeah, I'm very well versed in bitching. You know. So one thing, listen, EMS week just zoomed on by.
Happy EMS week, by the way.
Flew by. Oh, so exciting. The parades.
Uh-huh.
The accolades I was getting, the endless emails and thank yous for my service that were going on, plus the gifts. I want the endless gifts.
Well, can I interject something here for a second? Yeah. Let me just interrupt you because, you know, I remember when I first joined EMS and the bitching was loud and clear. Nobody pays attention to us. EMS week, who cares? You know, it was like it was a passing holiday that nobody even heard of. Okay, and then it slowly, you know, they realized, hey, we're paying these poor saps the same amount of money, asking them to do more work because our call volume was just increasing. Mm-hmm. And at that point, they said, okay, well, let's give them a thermos on EMS week. Let's buy them pizza. Okay, let's upgrade from pizza and get a sandwich spread from the cafeteria, and we'll do that.
Drive.
And then we'll give you a flash drive. Right. Okay, so our EMS week was slowly ramping up, right? I mean, mind you, I've only been in it for 20 years, and I may not have that much perspective, but it seemed to be slowly ramping up. Then COVID happened, where, you know, it was...
Every day is EMS week.
Every day was EMS week. And, you know, they worked us like government mules, and... but the budget's gone, so nobody gets anything. You know, you just get out there and do it where everybody's shorthanded. Can you work another shift? All of that other shit.
But they suspended all training and certificates and recertifications for everybody. Mm-hmm. That was your gift. You didn't have to stress and worry about taking tests and skills exams, you know, to recert your card.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So you're saying that's in place of a thermos or a flash drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think most people would prefer
Don't forget
that.
the charger.
Oh yeah, I have one of those too. That's amazing. That must be nationwide to do that.
You know, it says something when you can go through a junk drawer and find a half a dozen gifts they gave you for EMS week.
Listen, here's the thing, right? Something that this is something every year, and I try not to go on too much of a rant on it, but every year I see the posts in Facebook and stuff like that. What did your organization get you? What are you getting for EMS week? What kind of swag did you get? What's your organization doing for you for EMS week? And the answers every year are the same. Nothing has changed, and most of the answers are like you said, Josh. Right? Oh, here's a pizza. Here's this. Here's that. And usually that's the day shift that gets to take it and take advantage of that type of stuff, because by the time the 2 or 3 rolls in,
well, they still had them. They still had them, but they were a good 12 to 15 hours old.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know. Like for me, I feel like, you know, I always feel like EMS week is this thing where we're trying to do something for other people and not ourselves. We're always out there, you know, having, you know, awareness of EMS and awareness of what we do, and we're gonna train the, you know, have a mass CPR training or whatever, and it's like, well, those are supposed to be EMS week, not we go out and train everybody, or we go out and try to build awareness for what we do, right? It's supposed to be, well, you're supposed to be, you know, recognizing what we do already, not be a week-long effort of us going out there and trying to, you know, ramp up public support for, you know, for the week. You know, I see a lot of that goes on, and that it goes on every year. You know, there are some agencies that do a little bit more than others. I've worked for some that you know have done a little bit more than others have, but you know, it's never it's not the gifts. I think most people could really care less about the gifts. I think they would rather get some sort of a recognition for that, like when nurses have nursing week and you have, you know, the things like that.
Wait, nursing week sort of coincides with EMS week, right? You know, I mean,
isn't it the week before?
On the outside of the ER bay, there's, you know, congratulations, EMS week, blah, blah, blah. And then on the flip side of the sliding glass doors for the emergency room is nurses week.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Or
so
emergency.
My quick take on it. You know, normally every year I usually do a big giveaway, you know, on stuff and everything. And I didn't get around to doing it this year. I had a lot of stuff going on, so I couldn't get a lot of the cards and things like that I usually get printed out and mail out to people done. But I do a lot of free shit all year round. So what am I, Santa Claus? You know, I mean, there's free stuff on the website.
Good if you were giving out some free Santa cloth.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? Those round things, they're Santa cloth.
Yeah.
And every time I look at them, all I hear is, "Here comes Santa Claus." No, sorry.
No,
but that's what happens in my head.
Yeah.
Well, but we all know there ain't no. We all know there ain't no Santa Claus.
So with that said, do you guys have any thoughts on it before we? I don't want to spend too much time on it because the week is over, and it's time to move on to be plain-o.
Yeah. Well, my thought is like there was an EMS week ? So, you know, I mean, it's nothing's changed and it all remains the same or, you know.
You mean the more things change, the more they remain the same?
A little bit. Yeah, that one. Or
is it that the only constant is change?
Well, that I always looked at as a good thing because we were always in a situation looking for that change. So it's sort of like the weather in Colorado, right? You know, you don't like it, wait a minute, it'll change.
I think we should do away with EMS week. It gives people an excuse to believe they've done something for us and they haven't. It shouldn't be EMS week.
That's a good point.
The respect and the other things that we need are not a week's worth of stuff.
No, they're all year.
They're not trinkets.
Mm-hmm.
They are much more profound than that. I don't know. Did they have a National Attorneys Week where they give them trinkets? Do they have? I think it's a mistake. These weeks, I don't ever see that any of this stuff ever, not any of the months that we celebrate causes. I don't see them doing anything. What I would like to see is that the field get the respect and that we earn the respect year round. And I'm such a, I sound like such an old fart.
Dave, you're spot on.
I am.
You're spot on. And I think that's exactly, I mean, that's a good title for the show, Jim. Let's do away with EMS week. Well, we should, because it's bullshit.
People an excuse. I did something for them.
Right, exactly.
What I did, I spent another $20 per EMT.
And what have we seen?
Now shop to get back to work.
What have we seen over the last couple of years? All the experience is left. You have new people filling in, and the people who are sort of being promoted are the ones that just are available to work the most hours.
But I do want to say something. I do see an ongoing change. I do see some more continuous support from some places, some employers, some hospitals. I just think that the weak thing just doesn't. And you could put in National Ethnicity Month. Fill in whatever ethnicity you want. We don't need to identify them. When has that ever done anything for anybody?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The education on any ethnicity, the education on any career shouldn't be a week
long. Yeah. No,
right.
I totally agree with you, Dave. That's a good point that you made with that. And I venture to say I think most people probably listening and that they're in EMS feel the same way. That a week isn't doing anything. Let's just not do it, and let's focus on the acknowledgement that goes on year round. The push to improve goes on year round. And like you said, Dave, it's not just something. Oh, I'm in EMS. Give me recognition. You've got to earn it, right? You've got to earn that respect.
How about just get out of my way when the lights and sirens are on behind you? How about you pull over to the right? How about you just don't slam on your brakes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So I want to talk about something that I think, Dave, I'm hoping you're going to have an opinion on this. Is this? I'm sure you've heard of it. Is the National Registry is doing away with? We're going to be phasing out the skills.
Yes, they are.
What?
Yes.
Yeah, the skills exam is going to be now. They're going to be putting it on the
CIC.
The CICs, the schools or whatever are going to be the ones that are going to be developing how they, grade kids and students and whatever on whether they know what the hell they're doing.
But it's still going to be a component of certification.
Well,
so you can actually get your NREMT card without doing any skills.
No, without doing a skill exam.
Right. They were trying to make it so it's not this skill sheet rigid thing where you're memorizing all these, A, B, C, D, E, DCAT, BTLS, all that type of stuff. And, and that's what your main focus is on when you're trying to learn the skills rather than trying to be more of a clinical, clinical sort of, provider, thinking about what you're doing, applying what you know, and things like that.
So
right now,
don't let me misunderstand this.
I don't think there is an EMT. There's no EMT skill component right now at National Registry. There's no skill sheets there.
They did away with their skill sheets.
But so they have done away with the skills.
They have. They haven't updated them, I think, since 2016. There's no intent to, and they don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
The paramedic one, they still have the paramedic one there, but
it's on its way out.
Yeah, by 2023 is when they're going to have it gone forever.
So how about
Dave, because I do want to hear from you, but I want to clarify. So there's no structured requirement on proving abilities with any of these skills.
So that segues right into what I was going to give you as the historical perspective as an educator in EMS.
Right.
And I've only been doing that since 1981.
Right. So you're fairly new to it, but we still value your opinion here.
So all along, the skill exam, as we would listen, I can't talk for all other areas of the country. I'm going to focus on New York State, but New York State didn't invent this stuff. All along, we were told as CICs, because there were CICs famous for doing the opposite of what I was told to do and what I did do. We were told that if a student goes through your course and they stink at a skill and you can't make them any better at it and you've done your best, don't recommend them to go to the state skills exam. They have failed their skills. They don't move on. The skills exam, they said, is not to be the gatekeeper of skills, that they got it right once. Number one. Number two, when you move them forward, when you say, hey, yes, they should take the skill exam, as the CIC, you are attesting that they know it, and we just want to demonstrate this, as something that we can touch. It's tactile. We saw them do it from an outside source. Yet I know, because I've been on both ends, both as the instructor and I've been on the evaluation team, that there are many instructors who simply, whether they get it right, they've done it 3 times, they've done it 8 times, they've done it 10 times. The standard from one person to the other is low. They send them on to take the state exam, and that does their dirty work. There are plenty of CICs who don't want to go over and say, Josh, you do rotten assessment. You are not going to take the exam. And the students always say, just let me take the exam. What harm will it do? And the answer is, I as a patient, don't want Josh, the one-time lucky guy who got the assessment right on the state exam, never before and never after.
You had to use me instead of Jim. Well, luckily, I've never heard those words, but never had that conversation.
I'm just saying, it's where you are on my screen. You're on the right side of my screen, and that's what comes up.
That's okay.
So we were always told that they're supposed to know it before we get there. I think what the National Registry is saying is they are. By the way, do I think that there's any financial implication in this? There might be. There might be a financial motivation to move away from this. I know.
For who? For the National Registry?
It's very expensive to run a skill exam.
Skill stay.
It's
right. So they're not going to pay for that anymore. They're going to put that burden of assessing and stuff on the schools instead of.
Well, I don't think the National Registry was ever paying for it. We always had to pay the National Registry instructor to come down. There was always some financial exchange. Plus, every evaluator, every skills evaluator was always getting paid.
Yeah.
The reimbursement from the state was relatively limited on that. But I don't think it's a terrible idea that if the CICs, if the educational agencies can say, we are testing people out, we know they know this, and that's why we're moving them forward. We've documented and we document that they know it. Do you think so? I'm gonna just go to the next logical point. If it wasn't for the idea that financially disempowers the entire organization, imagine what would happen if simply the educational agency said, yep, they know it, no national written exam necessary. Because we've been doing that all along. And again, that is also something the CIC has been told. Listen, if their average is a 62, you don't give them the opportunity to maybe get that Jim, you got lucky on this. Although, Jim, you got lucky on this. We know that the written exams have their limitation as a, could you imagine an EMT test is 100 questions in New York State? That 100 questions covers what I learned in 200 hours. And so many of the questions are repetitive. Some people can make a fortune getting people ready to take these tests. I'm just saying.
I know. I wish I knew that the magic key.
Well, imagine.
Here's the other thing I'm thinking too, though. Like you said, there's the thing of the instructor not letting the student that has not been passing the class exams and quizzes and stuff, and saying, you know what, you went through the training, you've been here the whole time, you've been making it by the skin of your teeth, go ahead. And then what do? That student will cram, they'll study their brains off to get what they have to do, an app, a website, just sit there, reread the book from front to back, whatever it is, to go and pass either the state exam if there is one, or the National Registry if the state accepts National Registry as their final exam. But then at the same time, I mean, I know people that are in college that will skate by the entire course and know that, well, if I'm doing crappy the whole semester, but if I bang out that final, it'll get me up to a C+, and I'll get my credits, and it's a little, that I think is the mindset of a lot of the educational process that goes on, not just for EMS. That's where in a lot of different things.
And that shows a basic problem / break with the entire educational process for EMS. I mean, I remember when I was an EMT and I wanted to become a paramedic, everybody said, oh, you need a year or two. You need at least a year on the bus. You need, whatever their component of time. One refresher before you go. Right. And, then somebody said to me, if you feel you're ready for the paramedic course, just take the paramedic course. There's no requirement. So what I did was I sort of did that initial safety. As an EMT, I figured if I failed the paramedic test, I'd still probably pass the EMT test. So I'd keep my card, still be able to work the bus and go on that way. When I went into my paramedic class, the one of the most annoying things was the people who were doing the best in class. And of course, they set up a competitive environment. So you were competing against these people for recognition of who was doing best in class. The people who did the very best in class weren't working at all. They were literally staying at home with their parents. I mean, it was like, here I am working, 40 to 60 hours on the bus and then another 20 hours in a medic school. And these people are sitting there on the beach, literally on a beach, studying, the protocols or studying anatomy or studying whatever component there was. And it was infuriating.
Oh, yeah. I did the same thing. I had a full-time job. I worked a per diem job, and I was going to school. And
right.
it was super overwhelming. And
and who were the people in your class that were the best at skills? It was the guys who were working. I mean, I remember, when as soon as the medics heard I was in medic school, hey Josh, come here. Hey Josh, I know that you're probably you just started, but drop this line, give this medication, do this. So we got the real active skills as we were going through the program, not waiting for that component of okay, let's try, starting an IV on a plastic arm.
I mean, I had a lot of similar things too.
Put
because
the needle where all the holes are.
That's right.
You put the needle where all the holes are, like the needle decompression mannequin. Where would you go? Oh, there's 50 holes right over here. I think I'll go over there.
Right.
Hey, I did want to mention something. I see that Mike, we try and keep you in here. Too many people just
thank you, Mike, for coming back.
They want the money and don't want to and don't care about the product they are producing. I want to go back. Geez, I don't know how many years ago it was. Maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Maybe I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Were horses pulling buggies at that time? Just
we had a Stegosaurus. But
okay.
Yes,
those are nice.
Thoracic EMS. I was.
People got out of the way for those.
They did. I was the paramedic program coordinator for LaGuardia Community College, and I received a phone call from a student because we do recruitment too, to get students into classes. And I received a phone call from a student. He says, "I have some questions about your program." He says, "How much does it cost?" I told him that. And I mentioned to him, and we also have scholarships, full scholarships for a lot of people, not for everybody, which is why a lot of people called us. And he says to me, "Well, I'm trying to weigh this down, figure it out. I'm working. Obviously," he said, "obviously I'm working." And this other one of your competitors, and he mentioned the name of the competitor. He says, "I'm thinking of going there." And I said, "So, what are you thinking of going there for?" And he said to me, he says, "They don't fail anybody." So,
God, that makes me shiver.
And I said, "And what do you hear about LaGuardia?" He says, "LaGuardia," he says, "you can be failed for non-attendance. You can be failed for poor average. You can be failed for lack of skills." I said, "That's all 100% true." Now, having said all of that, I will tell you that you guys didn't attend LaGuardia. I didn't attend it as a student. But I have never seen an institution go more out of their way. They have ongoing skill sessions for anybody who wants it for free, like every week. It's ridiculous. You need remediation, they have it. They hire tutors for you. It's crazy. It's one. Now, all of that said, if you don't make it, we cut you.
Yeah, but how did you feel about the
students? They're given the opportunity, Dave. They're given the resources so that you don't fail. If you apply yourself and you do the work, you won't fail. If you struggle in certain areas,
they try really hard not to have
happening. I mean, in my paramedic class, I struggled when we first started doing EKGs, P wave. I don't know what the hell was going on, and I ended up having to, do studying on getting other books and stuff like that to help pull me through until it all clicked together for me. My program didn't offer that kind of side, after school tutoring type stuff. So when they do that, it's not about passing everybody. It's about giving everybody the complete opportunity to pass.
Yep.
And no excuses.
And so often, quite frankly, if a student didn't pass, they let them take the next course.
That's what Mike is saying right now. If you miss, he said they would just recycle you to the next class. But, the military does that too. When I was in the military, guys that weren't making it in boot camp, you didn't necessarily get kicked out of the military. They just recycled you to another class, boot you back to the beginning into another, another company.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, life happens. People get sidetracked.
Situation is, Josh.
Right. But what I wanted to bring was another point, Dave, is that, and something that I noticed as well is that when you had those classes, when you had those opportunities to sort of, retrain or even review those skills, you probably saw a lot of the same people there at those skills, like on a consistent basis, coming in, working it. And they weren't the worst people in the class. They weren't even failing. They just wanted that. They came in with the attitude is, I want to be the best I possibly can. And I want to get this down to rote and do it again and do it again and do it again. You know, I had a requirement when I did this. We had a requirement of so many rotations in the ER, right? I doubled that number. Doubled it. I loved those opportunities, and every time there was a free slot in the schedule, I signed up for it because there's nothing like it when you want to deliver good patient care. Is practice.
I did same type of stuff on the truck with the clinicals on the ambulance where I would sit there for my 8-hour rotation, and I'd be like, you know what, guys, can I stay the next shift because
right.
I really want to get some more exposure to the paramedic end of what's going on here, And luckily for me, I knew a lot of the people that I was doing the rotations with, and they didn't have a problem with me staying, I love the fact that you said that, Dave, the classes that do that, and I think there are a lot of courses now that are doing that are offering, the training and the remedial stuff after class, or like you said, on weekends when there isn't class, and instructors that are willing to either come in their own time or be paid.
We pay them
to tutor.
We don't stop them from giving their own time, but we pay them too.
Yeah, because that's the one thing where, like Mike was saying, that some places, they might just be looking at it as a numbers game, a money type game. But I think a lot of places now are really taking a more vested interest in what they are putting out there on the street, especially I think at the paramedic level, listen, I've the past, I don't know, almost the last 2 weeks, I've had a bunch of people that are in paramedic classes approach me, and have done video calls like this with them, trying to help them figure out the best way to study, the best way to go about what they're doing, and what they need to help them get through it, and National Registry versus New York City versus New York State, and so it's not like these people are taking these classes and just blindly going, I'm going to pass no matter what because I've paid my $10,000 or whatever it is, and I'm going to pass, and that's at the end. The students are actively looking for the help they need to get them through before they start falling behind and end up getting booted, So I think this thing with the National Registry getting rid of the skill sheets is a good thing. I know that a lot of educational agencies are going to have to now come up with their methods of how they're going to assess skills. Some of them might just keep using skill sheets, as a way that they're going to do it. That's my fear. My fear, they're going to just say, okay, we're going to take the old sheets, we're going to tweak them a little bit to the way we like it, we're going to keep all the main stuff in there, and it's going to satisfy whatever the National Registry wants, to meet, whatever the guidelines that they want them to meet, as opposed to doing things like, that whole, pit crew approach to things, and clinical evaluating someone's clinical knowledge and the application of that to a scenario.
So let me flip that over, Jim, and just say, okay, so we're taking it away from the requirement on sort of the student to pass this set of requirements or set of this skill sheet, right? But now we're putting the pressure on the organization to have some thoroughness and some standards for what they put out. And it's not always on the organization. As we know, listen, there's everybody on the bus will complain about, somebody who they feel is just not up to par and not delivering the standard that they want to see out of the organization. The exact same thing, and probably with greater impact, are the educators. We all know crappy educators and we all know great ones. And it's like now we have to rely on the lowest common denominator. So an organization might have a guy that nobody wants to get rid of. They all love. He's very personable, but he is the shittiest educator around. He's one of those guys who the moment he says, "Okay, let's discuss this topic," everybody goes to sleep or wanders off, or even or worse, and or even teaches things that are either out of date or just plain wrong.
But not applicable to above your pay grade type thing.
Right. So who's watching, the standard keepers in that case?
Yeah. Well, I think the National Registry has to. Yeah, I think the National Registry is going to be putting out the guidelines for the agency to say these are the standards that have to be met, and skills wise, just like they do with the training institutions. Remember back in the day when now anybody could test National Registry, but then they turned it around and said, well, you have to meet our guidelines to be an agency that is allowed to teach National Registry.
So we have that now.
Right. And they're going to do the same thing, I'm sure, with the skills. There's going to be guidelines set up that they're going to have to meet, that the teaching agencies are going to have to meet in order to go ahead and, for the student to be able to take the National Registry, written exam. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's something that's, that it's not going to be an overnight change like everything else in EMS, right? It takes forever to get something done, and then sometimes you end up going backwards. Like Mike is a lie that came down the tube.
We're bringing back Bertilium. Thank you.
Yeah, if only we could.
So it's just. I think it's, like I said, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a move in the right direction. My fear is, like I said, I just feel like some educational places are going to just stick with skill sheets, modify them, change the header to says National Registry, put their logo up there, and this is what we're going to use to test.
There's nothing wrong with having, specific guidelines.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
I mean, the students are going to have some kind of. You can't just go.
It can't be warm fuzzy.
Yeah.
Students appreciate structure.
Yes.
And listen, everybody coming out of EMS needs to know how to ventilate. We need to be able to measure that, and to not look arbitrary. We as educators, we as a profession need to have standards and guidelines.
Yeah. And that's the fear too, right, Dave? That if the National Registry is not having their skill sheets that are being followed, that you might have agencies that go like the one you talked about when the person said nobody fails, right?
Right.
Well, we're going to say you did okay on it just so you pass, and our stats look good, and you're not recycled to the next class where you're taking up a spot for somebody else that could have paid in full type thing. So there is a little, I guess, concern with that too. Of people just kind of getting pushed through the skills with their class because the instructors say that they did well.
Jim, look at the number one problem across the country. I'm sorry, Dave. If let me just get this thought out.
Go ahead. You always go before me.
The number one problem across the country is staffing right now. Is the attrition rate in EMS has gone through the roof, and they're looking for bodies. Now you put the qualifier in the organization that's looking to put people in seats. And what did we used to say about EMS? If you could fog a mirror, have a seat,
Yeah.
And so there's that, I still have to go back to who's watching, who's grading the graders? Who's watching?
Who's watching who?
Well,
So I just want to point out that I have watched over the years an evolution of organizations that I think we need to look at them separately and together and see if there's anything happening between them. Okay? Just to look. You've got the National Association of EMS Educators. You've got the National Registry of EMTs and Paramedics. You've got FISDAP. You've got COAMPS, which is the accreditation committee. And there's one more. And it's I knew I was looking for a pencil. I couldn't find it. I wanted to write them all down. But these organizations, National Registry says we're going to get rid of the skill exam. COAMPS, who accredits your organization to even teach a paramedic class for national recognition, says, oh, but we want to know what you're doing to measure.
Yeah.
And so the interesting integration of, well, I named 4 of them. If there's a 5th, I'm sorry, it's evading my head. We need standards. I would also like to see, by the way, I would like to see some competition amongst all of these organizations, because it's interesting how they hold the monopoly on what we do. But I know there is an organization out there, there's an American, as opposed to national, paramedic organization trying to grab a foothold in there. There was the American Baseball League and American League and the National League. And, this is happening once everybody saw the money. If you're the only show in town and everybody has to attend it, we call that a monopoly. That was Ma Bell back in the day. When I would crank up the phone, Ethel, you got to put me, that was, Bell Telephone. That's what we had to have. But I seem to see that happening here. But it's good that there are multiple agencies. I don't think the standards are going to go away. It's just an interesting integration where they say we're pulling stuff out, but COAMPS isn't going to let them hopefully COAMPS isn't going to let them pull it out. The standards are going to have to be there to teach it.
There is that migration that we've been making, EMS has been making over the many years of more evidence-based medicine and using the tools to determine the type of services that we are providing. And I'm not even getting into the GPS nonsense. I'm talking about like capnography,
love capnography.
Greater use of ECGs, EKGs, and all of the other components that we're now bringing into the
medical tricorders.
We're now bringing into the ambulance to determine, are we delivering good patient care? Down to the counters for CPR. I mean, now those are required to use. They used to be the thing that was left in the bag on the monitor, and now if you have an arrest, you put it on the chest, and that's what you're providing compressions through. With you get a tube, capnography. Even now, if you don't get a tube, if it's a nasal cannula, there's capnography.
I worked at a place where the patient had to be a certain temperature before you could pronounce them. You had to do a rectal temp on the patient before you could pronounce them. It was one of the things you had to have before you could pronounce, on top of
that was just
on top of all that stuff too.
All those rectal temps you got, Jim. That was the
excuse myself, and I don't know why the temperature was always perfect. I don't know what was going on. Look. I don't want to pronounce. I drew it myself.
Well, when they held the mirror up,
perfect.
When they held the mirror up to your face, I know you held your breath a lot. So
I do that today. When I don't have to go. I take my blood pressure. I hold my breath. They hate me. All right, guys. Let's end it there. We've been going on for a good 40 minutes. I'm sure Mike is tired of us rambling as well.
Nah, he loves it.
I appreciate Mike. I appreciate you making some comments and keeping the conversation going a little bit and pointing some things out. It was good to have another point of view during the show as well. So, guys, thanks for joining me. Anything you want to end with, Dave, Josh?
I'm good. I'm glad that we came back, even if this is, a non-continuation, no pressure to do another show.
Right. That's why I like it. Low pressure in my old age.
The final tour, like the Eagles. The Rolling Stones, it never ends.
I think it's worthwhile saying to anybody who's watching this is that Jim has been the powerhouse behind this podcast for now over 15 years. And there's a tremendous amount of work that he's put in on a consistent basis. And if it's just the administrative fact of this, of trying out the different browsers, trying out the different systems to present the show on, and to do the editing work and the other work that's required to put on the behind the scenes work that's required. And that's all been Jim's show. So, I have been privileged to
even
carry
whatever
on.
money it costs as well.
Yeah, and the money, right. And I've been privileged to, to be a guest on this show and this format. And it's because of Jim. And so if you're finding that life is, giving you enough distractions, I say distractions because the show is the only important thing, right?
Right.
But that that we can't do this as consistently as we used to do it. Let's remember that we're still the longest running show out there that gives voice to the issues that face EMS on a daily basis in the field.
Right. Anybody can do a podcast and ramble on about, a certain medication or a certain research that they want to talk about and bore the living crap out of everybody. So we try to be as light, boring. We're like EMS podcast, boring light. So it's boring. You can kind of go to sleep to it, but at least you go to sleep, you have a nice dream.
We'll give you something to discuss outside the ER bay while you're holding your 81.
And I agree that with Josh about all the work that
Mike says diet boring. Yeah.
Diet boring.
Yeah. I think
that's
about
what we aim to be.
It's funny, Josh, you say like I remember. I think about when the very first podcast I ever did. It was with just me and actually Dr. Bledsoe.
Yeah, Bledsoe.
And talk about the future of EMS. That was the topic.
And what's changed from over a decade ago to now? You could still have that. You could run that podcast again.
I should go back, get it, clean up a little bit, and put it back out there and say, what's changed since then?
Not a thing.
Absolutely.
Probably not much. Certainly not EMS week, that's for sure. EMS week has been the same.
Don't even get me started.
All right, guys. We'll end it there. As always, everyone, thanks for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. And I am Jim Hoffman.
Josh Knapp.
Dave Brenner.
Stay safe, everybody.